A mother straightens the breakfast table. Elsewhere, her family gets ready. Then the sky detonates. A blinding white flash swallows the room, hurling her across the kitchen. Walls vanish. Glass becomes shrapnel. Their entire world has just changed, and no one knows why. August 6, 1945 was just another day for the 350,000 residents of Hiroshima, a hub of industry key to the Japanese war effort. At 8:15 in the morning, the city was just getting started. Yui is preparing breakfast for her businessman husband and her 2 young children, a spread of rice, grilled fish, and soup. As usual, grandfather was up at the crack of dawn tending to the garden. And then it comes. A loud buzz comes from overhead. At first, no one suspects anything. Hiroshima has seen numerous bombing raids over the last few years, but the family lives far away from the city center and is usually unaffected. But today is different. There is no squealing cacophony of bombs, just a small group of aircraft flying toward the city center. And after a pause, one that feels like an eternity, an earth-shattering explosion tears through the house. When Yui comes to, she's surrounded by broken glass and debris. The air is burning. Pain shoots through her body. Her ears are ringing. The children. Yui races back into the house and sees the sprawled body of her husband Hiroshi. Blood drips from his head, but he lets out a low moan. Groggily, he props himself up on an elbow. Yui keeps running, fighting over debris and rubble. She rushes to her son Ichiro's room and finds him shaken but unharmed. After a few frantic moments, Yui finds her young daughter Hana huddled behind her bed, unable to speak from sheer terror. The family briefly embraces, safe but confused and horrified. And then the horror dawns on them. The grandfather, Jiro. When Yui's mother died, he was all alone. She asked him to move in with the family, but he never wanted to be a burden, and soon he was helping with the children, fixing up the house, and tending to the garden. And that is exactly where he was when the explosion hit. They make their way outside and they stop in their tracks. Hiroshi shields the children, stopping them from going any further. Jiro's lying prone in the garden, slumped over with a horrified expression. Yui runs to his side and drops to her knees. She desperately tries to wake him, tears streaming down her face. Jiro wakes with a start, spluttering and mumbling, but alive. Something is wrong. His eyes are vacant, empty. He stares right at Yui, groping, blindly unable to see. Yui sobs, but wails catch in her throat. She looks at the horizon in disbelief. She doesn't know what she's looking at. She only sees the city is gone, and whatever did this isn't finished. For those closer to the bomb, the difference between survival and instant death was seconds. For Kenji, a municipal inspector in Hiroshima, he was used to the bombings by now. Most of his co-workers didn't think the small wave of planes that morning was anything to be concerned with. But something ate at Kenji that morning. A horrible feeling in the pit of his stomach. He headed down to the office's bomb shelter and waited. Now he is buried under a pile of rubble in the basement. His ears are ringing as he desperately tries to claw his way out. He'll soon realize he was one of the few lucky ones. Kenji emerges into a wasteland. Much of the office building collapsed. The charred and bloody bodies of his co-workers lie on the ground. A burned hand reaches out to grab him, and he recoils in horror. Then it falls back down with a long, anguished groan. The air is heavy with death and destruction. Flames burn everywhere, and buildings are in ruins. He had seen American bombing raids before, but nothing like this. Kenji is so focused on survival, he doesn't even realize how badly hurt he is. The entire right side of his body is flash burned, weeping and bright red. From the look of the bodies on the ground, he is one of the lucky ones. The people who weren't protected had their skin seared straight off. He's not in much pain now, but that'll change. The ringing in his ears is intense, and he feels a trickle running down the side of his face. It's blood from a ruptured eardrum. He probably won't hear again. But that is the last thing on his mind. All around him is horror. The city is destroyed. This was no ordinary bomb. It's more like the wrath of God or a celestial object. Surely there is no power on the earth capable of this. Kenji has to keep moving. The air is hot and heavy. Breathing stings his lungs. He needs to get out of here, so he just starts walking. He looks around looking for someone, anyone to talk to get answers, but all he can see is countless bodies. The landmarks that he would pass on his way to work are gone, reduced to ash and boulders. Slowly, he picks his way through the carnage and he walks further from the city. And all across Hiroshima, people march to what they hope will be safety. Yui's family is one of the lucky ones. They're alive, but they're all injured or shaken, and the home is partially destroyed. They start making their way to one of the many bomb shelters on the outskirts of Hiroshima. Yui and Hiroshi have to support Jiro, with the old man still mostly blind and seeming delirious. Their children trail behind, timidly and afraid to look at the wasteland surrounding them. And they're not the only ones. As the road to the shelter winds on, new horrors await the family. They're met with other people, dazed and confused and looking for answers. Some look worse off than they are, with blackened skin peeling off, or bandages over wounded eyes from flying glass. Bodies litter the side of the road. Yui tries her best to cover her daughter's eyes from the horror, and now they have to find their way in. The Japanese military mans the bomb shelter, ushering people in, sort of. The soldiers, a common fixture in the neighborhood, are usually calm and collected. Today, they're frantic and terrified. They spray the victims with hoses before they let people in. They don't explain why, only that everyone must be sprayed. And then, Jiro collapses. Soldiers surround the old man. Yui and her family are ushered away, but they can hear Jiro cry out quietly as the last of his energy leaves him. The soldiers pick up his prone body and take it away. It is the last time Yui will see her father. High in the sky, the mystery is deepening. Daichi is a pilot, a good one. He's flown over 30 missions for the Emperor, and he's come back from all of them. He said goodbye to many of his allies, both when they were shot down and when they were chosen for kamikaze missions. But he has never seen anything like what he is seeing over the horizon today. And with growing horror, he realizes his brother is down there. Daichi's older brother works in the city. He had done his military service in the earlier years of the war, serving on a ship and coming back with decorations. But he was never the military man at heart that Daichi is. He was happy to return to his desk job, but now the war has found him, and he has never seen a weapon do this. No one on the radio can tell him what it is. Kenji's eyes burn as he makes his way through the rubble. The air is thick, filled with ash and dust. His throat is dry and raw. He stops to cough and hacks up a thick black liquid. It's not blood. What's happening to him? He was at the epicenter, but now his body itself is turning against him. Is he truly one of the only survivors of this disaster, or has he simply been sentenced to a longer agonizing death that'll be unfolding now? He'll find out, whether he likes it or not. Eventually, through the thick burning fog, Kenji sees signs of life. 2 soldiers wearing gas masks spot him. They grab him and drag him forward. Soon, he finds himself at a makeshift bomb shelter, a field hospital with a few other survivors. From a look at the others with him, he is the best off, and the others are mostly horribly burned, barely holding on to life. He tries to ask the soldiers what happened, if he's going to be okay, but they don't seem interested in answering his questions. And miles away, company doesn't make anyone feel at ease. Yui and her family quietly mourn Jiro in the shelter. Aside from Hiroshi getting a fresh dressing over his forehead, they are thankfully intact and together. But the scars of the day aren't all visible. Looking around, it's clear to Yui that everyone in the shelter is as terrified as she is. An old woman in the corner mutters about Japan having lost the favor of the gods. A man is ranting about Americans harnessing the power of the sun. But most people here are just confused and thankful to be alive. And it'll be a long time before they know the truth. It's the longest day of Daichi's life as he continues running missions for the Air Force until he's ordered to Hiroshima to assist in rescue missions. He's to rendezvous with his commanding officer and conduct a search for survivors, although they don't expect to find many. The command is still being cagey about the source of the horror, but Daichi is just glad to be close to the action. His father died long ago, and his elderly mother lives far from Hiroshima, but both brothers promised they would keep each other safe, and he intends to keep his promise. Daichi had seen his share of carnage over the war. The American bombing raids on Tokyo left much of the city a wasteland and burned countless people. But this is different. The epicenter looks like nothing is left. There aren't even any bodies, as they were simply wiped away. The further it gets away, the destruction becomes less total but more visceral. It doesn't take much investigation to determine that many of these people are long dead. But even among the horrors, there are some miracles. The commander knows to check the basements, and occasionally someone is found alive. They're almost always in rough shape, but any survivor is a welcome sight. Daichi is ordered to escort 2 young women, both burned and shell-shocked, to a nearby bomb shelter. He tells them to keep their eyes to the ground as they walk. He wants to ensure they keep their footing, but he also doesn't want them to see the carnage all around. And as they arrive at the bomb shelter, a miracle happens. He is burned and haggard, but it doesn't take much for Daichi to recognize his brother, Kenji. The 2 men embrace briefly, and Daichi promises to get word to their mother that both her sons are alive. Neither of them fully understand the events of today, but they are survivors. And soon, Daichi will be back in the battlefield, ready to avenge this horrible event. Or so he thinks. The next few days pass in a haze. Daichi is returned to the battlefield, and his commanders seem more fired up than ever. It's clear they blame the Americans for this disaster, and they tell their men to prepare for an intensified battle against the enemy. Kenji spends those days in a haze, lying in the hospital bed that he was evacuated to. The nurses treat the burns, but nothing they do stops the fever. But the nausea comes back without warning, worse than the burns. When he's not sleeping, he is sweating and vomiting. But somehow Hiroshima survived, or at least the people in it had. For the first time since the explosion, the sky stays quiet. 3 days later, another city disappears, Nagasaki, almost 250 miles away. Once could have been a natural phenomenon, but now it's clear. This is an attack, one like none other in human history. It not only rips cities apart in an instant, but it leaves lasting, devastating health effects on its survivors. And another one could come out of the blue at any point. And things happen fast from here. Daichi is the first to learn of the Emperor's surrender. While the commanders were only hours ago preparing the troops for one last glorious battle, they now say the war is over. All these men will be going home in disgrace. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but Daichi will never admit the sense of relief he feels. All the young men around him were prepared to fight the Americans to the last man. But how can one fight a bomb with the power of 1,000 suns? But for the survivors, a longer battle lies ahead. Yui and her family return home and start to make repairs, but the house feels more empty now, and the absence of her beloved father can be felt in every corner of the house. None of them knows what levels of radiation are in the air, or if it'll affect them in the future. As Yui sweeps the kitchen, a sore spot on her arm continues to bother her. She scratches at it and touches something hard and sharp, a small piece of glass embedded in her arm, a painful reminder of what they survived. Weeks later, Kenji is released from the hospital. His fever broke after a few days, and he only discovered the horrors of Nagasaki once he was beginning to recover. His burns are healing and the nausea has mostly subsided, but he is weak and haunted, and as he returns to his mother's home for a fresh start, it's hard to ignore the strange looks of her neighbors. He will come to be known as Hibakusha, a survivor of the nuclear bombs. He will be viewed with suspicion. People don't know if he's dangerous or if the danger followed him home. And the truth will continue to come eventually. For days, no one tells them what happened. There are no announcements, no explanations, only rumors that the air is poisoned, that the sun fell from the sky, that something invisible is still killing people long after the fires have gone out. It isn't until weeks later that a new word begins to circulate among doctors and officials. Atomic, a weapon unlike any bomb before it. One that doesn't stop when the explosion ends. By the time ordinary people begin to understand, many already know the truth in their bodies. The fevers, the vomiting, the hair falling out, the neighbors who survived the blast only to die days later. Hiroshima wasn't destroyed in a moment, it kept happening long after the sky went white. To discover how America cracked the bomb, check out the man who created the deadliest weapon in history, J. Robert Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb. Or watch this video instead.